Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be talking about the new Netflix series, His and Hers. This is a 6-episode series. It is from a book written by Alice Feeney, and it stars Tessa Thompson and Jon Bernthal. So let's get into it. So this is a series I never saw a trailer for, but when this released, oh my goodness, like that's all I was seeing on any of my social feeds was everyone raving about this show, especially the twist. So I was very curious to get into this and see what it was all about. So we follow these two primary people throughout this story. So Jon Bernthal is a detective in this small town, and the story leads up to where a body is discovered in the woods that looks to have been murdered, and it becomes this whodunit style story. And so as we're kind of getting familiar with this small town, we're learning about what his role is and kind of leading up to this. We also followed Tessa Thompson, who is a news reporter, and seems that she has been away for some time. She's going back to try to get her job back. She hears about this murder and she says, hey, let me cover the story. If you give me so much time, I promise I can do a good job and try to win my position back as like the face of this news channel. And so once Tessa Thompson's character gets there, we kind of learn that she knows a lot of these people, and as this kind of mystery is unraveling, we realize like the connections all of these characters have together. And so we're primarily going to be following Harper and Anna, who are a married couple. These are the primary two, the detective and the news reporter. And we're kind of learning about the things that they've gone through and kind of what separated them and what's bringing them back together as we're trying to peel back the layers of this story and figure out what happened actually and how this is all connected. And this is a pretty solid whodunit because, you know, as we're going through each episode, there are so many situations that as a viewer, you were like, oh my goodness, like, you know, maybe this person killed this girl, or maybe it was this person. And you're kind of seeing the reasons why, because, you know, this is a pretty tangled mess where everyone is involved with each other in some capacity. And the deeper we go in the story, we're learning more and more about these characters. So let's get into a little bit of the positives and negatives of this. You know, I think the positives is just the tension this brings, the keeping you interested. The pacing's really good. The whodunit element works really well in this series because, you know, for 6 episodes that aren't very long episodes. I mean, these episodes can range from about 40 minutes to just under an hour. So you're going through these pretty quickly. I think many people binge this in one day. I split this up in a 2-day, just split it up in 2 days. But it's a pretty easy watch that you can get through. And I think, you know, the chemistry that you have between these characters and the dynamic really helps to keep this entertaining and engaging. It is a bit of a spicier show as well, so, you know, definitely don't let kids kind of see this in any way. But kind of seeing how all that plays out between these characters is quite fascinating because, you know, it's a weird because it's like a small town feel, but these people are trying to make it seem bigger, you know, in a bigger place than it actually is. This isn't a town outside of Atlanta. And so Anna's character has been based outside of Atlanta. She's trying to get her job back there at one of the TV stations to be like, you know, the daytime news anchor. But now that she's back in this town, she's kind of rekindling relationships with, you know, Harper, who is her husband, and then other people that she knows. And so I think, you know, the way the characters were written and how they all interact with one another was very, very well done. You know, getting into the negatives of things, I think, you know, for me, like really with Jon Bernthal's character, which he does a great job, but it's not too much new. I mean, it is almost like we're seeing another version of Frank Castle. It is Jon Bernthal being Jon Bernthal and what he does best, being this rageful individual that's just holding that back, who's basically constantly screaming and cursing and shouting and slamming doors and things like that. You know, he does have a bit of a softer side because we see him quite a bit with his niece in this, and there's other elements of the story that we kind of learn about between their characters and what separates them. And it does add to a softer side to his character, but for the most part, we're not getting anything too new. And I wish we could have gotten something a little bit new from Jon Bernthal. I think there's like some weird plot holes throughout this as well. Like there's some things that get brought up in the beginning that are kind of brushed away. Like there's things that I feel like there could have been more to this story between the characters, and like it's anything from like a physical appearance that they may have had or some things that are going on within their story that just kind of get rushed. But I will say, like, this is one of those TV series that has like a pretty great twist. And that's what everyone's talking about. So if you're seeing people talk about this online, they're probably talking about the twist at the end. And for a minute, when you get into these last two episodes and certain things start, becoming, unglued, and we're kind of discovering certain things about characters, there's a one point I was like, man, was this really the twist? Because like I kind of saw this one thing coming, but then it happens, and then it's one of those like, man, I never would have saw that coming. And this, like I said, this is based off of a book, so going into the series, if you've read the book, you're already going to know what's going to happen. So I am quite curious, like, how this kind of lines up with the book. Is there more detail, or are there things that we missed? But for His and Hers, at a 6-episode killer thriller style series, I quite enjoyed it, and I think it's a pretty fun watch, and I think the characters are really entertaining, and the twist pays off in the end. Not to give anything hopefully too much away, but I would say, like, if you've seen Sharp Objects on HBO, that is another series where I enjoyed the characters, and the twist at the end there is one that wasn't entirely seen coming. And when it all happens, I had the similar feeling when I got to the end of His and Hers. But yeah, it's definitely one. Maybe they could do spin-offs and have other stories in a similar manner, but if they can pull it off each time, like, this would make for a recurring decent watch. So His and Hers, all episodes are now streaming on Netflix. If you watched it, what did you think? If you've read the book, let me know. Does it compare good, poorly to the book? Is the book worth reading? Does it give a lot more detail? Is there more within the book? Would love to know. Thanks so much for stopping by. To support this channel, it'd mean a lot if you would consider subscribing, liking this video, all of those things. That helps the algorithm, helps grow this channel. I also am an app developer. I have a number of apps in the App Store. All the links are in the description. So if you want to check those out, leave those a rating and review, or just give me some feedback. I really appreciate it. All right. Pretty excited for this week. We've got 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple coming out, so I'll be reviewing that later in this week. Also have other movies I've seen in TV series, so be on the lookout for those. All right, hope everyone has a great week. We'll see you soon.